So I know that we're all busy. Life gets crazy sometimes. I totally get it. But what if there was an intentional process? Like you could actually not just like, hey, I'm going to go get my nails done or I'm going to go to Target. But what if there is an intentional process that you could just plug into to help shape your character so that you don't feel so scattered, so that you're not so overwhelmed? That's why I'm so excited about today's episode of the Crazy Blessed Show, because we're going to show you a way you can do just that based on a timeless tradition. I'm excited you're here on the Crazy Blessed Show. All right, guys, special treat for you today. I've got Ruchi Koval, and this is an extraordinary woman. She is an educator. She is a historian. She is a coach. She's basically like the whole package, but she's got an incredible book out called Soul Construction. That's what we're talking about today. This ancient practice, really, it's like this timeless Jewish practice of how to shape your character. But I'm not the one to talk about it. Ruchi is. So Ruchi, congratulations on your book. And thank you so much for being here today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, this is our honor. Like, I love this so much. I was looking through your book. First of all, 7 kids, like anyone who has 7 kids, like we're soul sisters, right?
I know. I was so excited when I learned that both of us have 7 kids and almost the same ages too.
Yeah, it's so weird. So I love this because we understand you can't just take like a day off because you're going to go right back to the craziness. Yeah. That's why when I saw your book, Soul Construction, right here, shape your character using 8 steps from the timeless Jewish practice of Mussar, I'm like, ooh, I got to get me some of that. Like, I want to know all about this because, the Christian faith is based in Jewish heritage.
Yeah.
And so the more we understand about that, the more we can shape our soul to resemble more of that mind of Christ. And we can be more productive with our time instead of thinking that I need a day off. I need a vacation. Like, no, maybe you need Mussar. So I want to know, what is this? What is this Jewish practice? How did you discover this? Tell me the backstory.
Okay, I will totally do that. Thanks. So I grew up as a religious Jew my whole life. I grew up in a family of 7 kids myself, actually. I'm the second of 7. And my husband also grew up as a religious Jew. And so we grew up with this practice of Mussar. I never thought I would be teaching it, but life sometimes catches you by surprise. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so, which I discussed in my foreword, that at some point my husband decided to become a rabbi, which was not, we were really young when we got married. I was only 18 and he was only 22 when we got engaged. We got married a couple months later. And so we grew up together. And so we made, our life decisions really together. And so he decided to become a rabbi after we were married for a couple of years. And so I wasn't sure, like, if I wanted to be like the partner to that, or if I kind of wanted to do my own thing. But in the end, God has his plan. And I ended up being drawn along with him in his quest for teaching the wisdom from the Bible. And so what I realized is that this wisdom of Mussar that I had grown up with my whole life, and I'll explain what it is in a minute, that there are so many people who don't have access to the wisdom of the Bible because they didn't grow up with that orientation, and they may not have access to the texts, but that this was like a really appealing way to show people how much wisdom, contemporary wisdom, there is in these ancient texts. And what Mussar really is, and this is why on the cover of the book, it has the character traits here. And Mussar is a philosophy that a human being can find spirituality through working on their specific character traits.
Okay.
So, and just like some of the chapters: forgiveness, generosity, silence, renewal, happiness. And that, and it can be very, as you said, intentional, very systematic. And that through that practice, like everything in our life ends up getting focused through that prism. And so we can live our best life. That's
so it's kind of like a filter.
Yes.
On how you process everything in your environment, your circumstances, your life, basically, when you can start getting this. And that's what our soul does. Like, we take in all the information from our environment, all our circumstances. It gets filtered through our soul, which is our mind, our will, our emotions, all those stories we've created about what reality is, right? Mm-hmm. And then that controls our behavior. So I love this idea of if we can work on anything, we need to work on our soul.
Yes.
Because this is the determining factor. It's not like everything in our life, how much money you have, how healthy your relationships are, your family, how you're running your home, the joy that you have. Everything is dependent upon how it's filtered through your soul.
Exactly.
And I love this idea. So tell me more about Mussar and what it is. And you've been doing this your whole life. So tell me about that.
Okay. So like, I'll just start out by giving you an example, right? Let's take the world of moms, because I know that you're so active with helping moms, and I've read a little bit about your mom mastery, and it's so needed.
A girl.
And so valuable. And I think a lot of what I've been through in my own parenting journey has informed a lot of what I write in the book, because I feel like parenting peels the protective layer off of your soul. And all of a sudden, like, your character traits are exposed in a way that you could have hidden or glossed them over before. So if you have anger management issues, they'll come out in your parenting. If you have control issues, they'll come out in your parenting. If you have self-esteem issues, oh man, they will come out in your parenting. So the
Ruchi, I've got to tell you this. This is so funny, because literally at our team meeting this morning, 3 people were stayed behind, and literally all we discussed was how motherhood makes you raw. Everything that you've had control over, or you were able to manage, motherhood turns that inside out, and every little speck that is out of alignment with what God wants for you is exposed. And you can either try to cover that up, and it's still going to come out though. And so you have to deal with this. And you're so right. Parenthood reveals everything.
Yeah, it reveals everything. You can like hold it all together and come to work and put on your face and your hair and blah, 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 and fake it. But you cannot fake it with your kids.
Girl, no.
It. And so the idea then is that the first step in any practice of Mussar is always going to be self-awareness. And there are several classical Mussar texts in Hebrew. Many have been translated. And almost always the first of the character traits is something having to do with self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, like I was saying, that's sort of what motherhood gives you, because it peels off that protective layer. And all of a sudden you're like, I never realized that I have anger issues. Right, I never realized that I have so much fear. I never realized. And that's all great, because self-awareness is always the starting point of growth.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be. Because you can't change anything you're not cognizant of.
Exactly. And then you start to unpack the character traits. So I'm going through my day. I'm triggered at the grocery store. I'm triggered at home. I'm triggered at work, whatever is happening to me. Right. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So in the study of Mussar, you would filter that through the prism of Mussar, and you would say, which character trait is being triggered here right now? Is this a patience issue? Is this a judgment issue? Is this an envy issue? And then you would get to the root of that character trait. And often it's a few, right? Because they all kind of blend together. But it's the fact of separating, teasing them out and saying, oh my goodness, I'm jealous of that person. Wow, I never realized that. And then you would go and use the tools of envy. So for instance, one of the tools of envy is, nobody can take away what God has decreed for me. If I were meant to have that thing, I would have that thing. So why am I spinning my wheels being envious of somebody else's lot that was never destined for me? I don't need that for my life's journey. And on and on and on through the character traits.
Yes. So good. Because if we have a way of dealing with it, I think that's what most people miss is even if you're aware that there's a problem, you're aware that there's a fear, you're aware that there's something just like that's off. Mm-hmm. I think our first response, unfortunately, is let me just Google how to fix this, instead of letting that awareness yield to even more deeper awareness of that particular area where you could be holding fear, where you could be holding back, where you could be out of alignment. Exactly. And I feel like everything that we hold, that we hide, everything that is secret, that's where the hurt and the pain grows. As long as we can like open it up and let light and air get to that, just like mildew grows in dark places. Exactly. Right. And so when we try to like shove it away, it's just going to keep continue to grow, and it's going to come out. It's like whack-a-mole, right? If you don't deal with it, all of a sudden it's going to show up in all the different areas of your life. And then you're playing this crazy game of whack-a-mole.
Totally.
But if we can just now having a significant template, like having something specific to go by and to say, okay, now if I can go to this belief, if I can go to this thought, if I can go to this realization, it's going to help me process this.
Yeah.
I just believe that's so powerful. We need those tools.
It is so powerful. And I think what also happens is that a lot of times people don't want to experience the discomfort that they're struggling with: anger, fear, envy, low self-esteem. But part of what I find so transformative and actually so therapeutic about practicing Mussar is that those uncomfortable feelings are actually necessary for growth. And that's part of what I talk about in my chapter on renewal, which is that when a person experiences regret, right? I didn't handle that right. Why did I do that? I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this. Having parented 7 kids, my oldest being 27, my youngest being 11, I look back on how I parented my older kids when I was younger, and I have regrets. And I say, why did I do that? I didn't know that, and it's uncomfortable, and we don't want to hold those uncomfortable feelings. But actually what I said in my book is being comfortable with that discomfort is the only way we can grow.
Absolutely.
And so, right. So we use those uncomfortable feelings to say, okay, I'm experiencing emotional pain. Well, when I experience physical pain, I touch something hot on the stove. What does my brain do? It pulls my finger away because it says, oh, pain is a message that this isn't good for me. So that discomfort is simply a message. There's no judgment there. It's a message that this isn't good for me and that I don't want to be in that place anymore. But guess what? Because Mussar gives us a path forward. You're not stuck in your character traits. Even if you have anger issues and your father has anger issues and his father has anger issues and it's a time-honored tradition of anger issues, but you're not defined by that. You're not bound by that. That this is wisdom from thousands of years ago, that people have been struggling with this stuff since time immemorial. So struggling is not the issue, but there's a path forward.
I love that idea that pain is a message.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of trying to prevent pain, what if we just leaned into it?
Exactly.
Right.
It's information.
Right. Yeah. I see so many people who are in pain. And I think the biggest problem we have is thinking we shouldn't have problems.
That's right. And
you know what I mean?
Like idealized version, I think, especially in the social media culture that we live in. Oh, this is what a relationship with a mother is supposed to look like. Oh, this is how siblings are supposed to get along. This is how husbands and wives are supposed to be. And that's just not real life. Even in the most perfect relationship, there are going to be these bumps, and there are going to be these bad days, and there are going to be, these, even on our faith journey and our relationship with God, right? There are good days and there are bad days. There are days that I feel really connected to my spiritual core, and I feel like God is with me, and I feel his presence so strongly. And then there are days where I'm like, where are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think we have to normalize that. There will be the discomfort. Mm-hmm. The discomfort is not the problem. It's what you do with it.
Right. And it is 100% necessary.
Yeah.
Because without discomfort, there's no growth, just like you said. And so we can stay without growth, but there's also without growth, there's no joy.
Exactly.
And so the goal, if you look at the goal, everyone has goals. Like, I would love to be this weight. I would love to have this kind of marriage. I would love to travel. The only reason we have any of those goals is we want to feel something different. Mm-hmm. We want to feel happy. And we think this is what will make me happy. But we don't understand it's not attaining the goal. It's becoming the person who could attain that goal. That's the real success. Like, the real success is not getting $1 million. It's becoming that person who has refined themselves and put in the effort and has those daily habits. That's the success. And so, so I believe this is just a way to practice. Well, I mean, of course, you're the expert on it, but what a beautiful intentional way to have a template for that growth.
That's right. And a lot of it also is about like a transformed attitude.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Because we all know it's not so much about what happens to you, but about how you process what happens to you. Right.
Right.
And this is true of anything. A child could experience, let's say, the divorce of their parents, and they could process it very internally and say, it's my fault and I'm bad. And that will be a very traumatic experience for a child, or different people will process things in very different ways. So when a person, experiences something negative, right? Let's say that one of my siblings, this is not true, my siblings are fabulous, but let's say that one of my siblings did something very hurtful to me, right? So Mussar, working on your character traits, is not about swallowing down your feelings and saying, no, I don't really feel hurt. I shouldn't feel hurt. Feeling hurt is bad. Feeling hurt is a sin. God doesn't want me to make a fight. Forget it. That's not Mussar, because basically you're squashing your feelings down and you have no way to metabolize what just happened to you.
Okay.
So with Mussar, you have a way to metabolize what happened to you. So what could you say? It's all about changed attitudes. You would say, somebody did something hurtful to me. Okay, that's between them and their higher power. That they're going to have to, account for that one day. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I talk about this in my chapter on judgment. Maybe they're compromised. Maybe they're limited. Maybe they regret it. Okay, maybe they just don't know how to say I'm sorry. But I also believe that nothing can happen to me if God didn't will it. And so this discomfort is a message for me. What is it a message for me for? Maybe it's a message for me to become more sensitive. Maybe it's a message for me that I perhaps need better boundaries with this sibling. It's a message. And so I have just kind of metabolized and digested this situation in a completely different way. So it's not like I'm telling my feelings, you don't count, you don't matter. I'm just processing them mindfully and spiritually. So they bring me somewhere, so that instead of being a victim of my circumstances or feeling like a martyr, I now feel empowered that every single thing that happens to me, good or bad, has the possibility to be a growth opportunity.
That is so insightful. And it can be so powerful when you really understand what's at stake here. And I hear a lot of what you're saying, Rookie, goes back to that idea. I can't change people.
Yep.
Like, tell me more about that. Like, I see so many people in torment because if this person were just like this, my life would be better. If that person were like that, my life would be better. Thinking that other people hold the power to control your life.
Yes.
So tell me about that. How does this practice of Mussar help with this whole idea? Like, I need to fix people, good or bad. Like, I just need to change people. I need to fix them. They're even that act that we think is so beautiful and loving, they're in pain and I need to fix their pain. Even that.
Right. So, and by the way, it's so pervasive. We use this language all the time without paying attention to it. Like, we'll say, she makes me so mad. Right?
My kids try to do that. My kids will never say that because they know I said, oh, honey, no one can make you do anything. It's like, and so none of my kids, like, they make me, or this teacher makes me so, oh, baby, you're not that weak. No one can make you do anything. Like, they know as soon as that comes out of their mouth, they absolutely know what their mom's going to say. Yeah. But tell me about that.
So, and this is, like I said, a lot of what I learned over the past 2 decades of being an educator has been through the texts and through the teaching. And a lot of it has been through my own personal experiences, most powerfully in parenting my 7 kids. And they're very, very different. Our parenting journey has not been smooth or easy. There have been many, many bumps along the road, and I've really learned a lot from my mistakes. And I would say that this concept of not being able to fix or change or control other people has mostly really implanted itself in my brain thanks to my parenting journey, because and if there's anybody we think we can fix or change, or actually we think we should, it's like our mandate. That's why they're art, right? It's our kids. And so I have just really, really learned that unless somebody, I once saw this poster board, girl, if he's not wearing a diaper, you can't change him.
That's awesome.
And that is true. And so through the prism of Mussar, I have tried to unpack, why do I continue to try to do this when I know that it cannot be done? Yeah. And I think a big part of it comes from a good place, meaning I want to see the people I care about live a better life. And I do have wisdom that I could share if they would only listen to
If
it.
they would just listen.
Yeah. And so, but what I have learned, and this has been a very humbling experience, and this is I think one of the most important quotes in my book, is that I am not God.
Yeah.
And I can't have an agenda for another human being. That's such an arrogant thing to have.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be an arrogant person. I want to be a humble person.
Yeah.
I'm not the sage on the stage. I'm the guide on the side.
That's beautiful.
So I'm here, and if somebody wants to ask me my opinion or advice, I'll still be really careful about giving it, because I think that people really have to find their own way as much as possible. But my kids know that I'm here for them, and the people who I teach know that I'm here for them, but I'm not telling other people what to do. I'm here to lead by example. And, God knows I have my own issues to work on, as I try to do as much as possible. And I try to do that vulnerably and authentically. I certainly don't pretend to have it all together. But I have learned how this wisdom can really, really help you. And that release of control has actually been so liberating. Because,
Isn't it?
Yeah, because those storybook endings, that's great for Hollywood. And when I go watch something or read something, I want a happy ending. But
Yeah.
real life is messy and complicated. And
Yeah.
it's not about a happy ending. It's about happy moments throughout. And all the while you're trying to control another person, you're not going to have those happy moments, because they're never going to be exactly what you want them to be.
They're not. And we're not fragile people. Like, we have to realize we're not so fragile that other people need to conform themselves to make us content.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we're saying. It's like, my happiness depends upon if you meet my expectations or not.
Right. And it's self-sabotaging.
It is.
Why would I want my happiness to depend on what someone else does?
Right.
I want my happiness to depend on what I do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as we grow in our awareness, and just in our faith too, as we grow in our relationship with God, we can realize I can love people enough to give them freedom to make their own choices. And I think that, God ultimately loves us enough to give us the freedom to reject or accept him.
That's right.
So can't we operate, because we're called to be like God in this world, so can't we operate with that same level of love, that I love you enough to give you all the freedom to make your own choices? Because I think that's what love really looks like. And it is, parenting will try you, because we have to maintain that delicate balance between being the parent who's guiding the choices and being the loving one who also gives freedom.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like minute by minute, right?
Completely. And also, like, I think when you do have a large family, you sometimes think, oh, I've been through that before. I know what to do, but it's an entirely different kid, an entirely different personality, and as we get older, we're not the same either. I'm not the same mother that I was 20 years ago,
Right.
But I have to believe that the mother that my older kids were destined to have, that's who they had. And the mother that my younger kids were destined to have, that's who they had. And so that's okay. But, and I think it's okay to also, to pivot and to say, well, I've been doing this for a while and I don't know if that's working for me anymore. So I'm going to be brave enough to try something different, and that doesn't mean that I am, indecisive or scattered. It means that I'm always open to learning new things.
Oh, that's beautiful. So good. So as long as we stay open, then God can use us. And I consider flexibility one of the greatest traits we can have.
Yeah.
Flexibility with our days, with how God is moving in our life, with the people that he brings in and out, like all of that. So let me ask you, because I want to get, before we wrap this up, I want to get super specific with this. So if you were to practice Mussar, is it literally like, let's spend a week working on this and a week working, like, what does this look like for a person to go through this?
Question. So Mussar has always been a part of the Jewish tradition and practice. What changed was in the 1800s, there was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi Israel Salanter, and he created what became known as the Mussar movement. And so he created schools dedicated to the study of Mussar.
Oh,
and
wow.
He suggested, this was back in Lithuania in the 1800s. And he believed in using various tools and practices for the study of Mussar. So first of all, he believed in studying from the ancient texts, so very much text-based. 2, he believed in studying from a teacher, so specifically like somebody who had studied more than you and knew more than you. 3, he very much advocated having a peer group who was studying it together with you so that you could support each other. 4, he advocated for some solitude and meditation every day. And 5, he advocated journaling. So journaling every night. And so like there's many different ways to do this in my, congregation. When I teach Mussar, it's a weekly class. So you've got the text, you've got the teacher, you've got the peer group, right? And then we go through different character traits. So any like ancient classical Mussar text will have, for example, 28 character traits or 13 character traits or 9 character traits. And then you would work on that character trait for as long as you're doing it. But if somebody were to work on Mussar on their own, they might instead want to make, for example, like a list of the top 3 traits that they want to work on. And then they might spend a month on each one, reading texts, practicing it in real life, accessing inspirational, teachings. And then after 3 months, they might decide, okay, do I want to continue working on these traits or do I want to pick 3 new traits and then go back through the cycle? Or a person could spend 1 week on each one. There's many different ways to do it.
That is beautiful, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Like this soul construction, because it's shaping your character using 8 steps from the Jewish practice of Mussar. Like, what if we just, using your book, what if we just went through like 1 week? I'm just going to meditate on this. I'm going to journal about this. I'm going to increase my awareness about this. I just think that would be such a powerful way to create some real transformation in your life.
Yeah, it is. And the fascinating part is that if you're doing this, you're going to be working on that trait without even noticing it.
So cool.
Because as you're reading and as you're journaling, like let's say, one of the things Rabbi Salamser advocated was every night before you go to bed, you journal for a couple minutes and you do what he calls an accounting of the soul. And you look back on your day and you say, okay, how did I do in my character trait today, right? So even if you're not actively working on it, but you'll find that your sensitivity and awareness are so heightened that it's almost like you can't help but do better.
So beautiful. Wouldn't you love to just live a life characterized by, I can't help but do better?
Oh,
right?
That sounds like utopia.
Oh, it does. But it's possible if we turn this in, like all we're doing is really teaching our subconscious, like, look, this is what we're going to be aware of.
Right.
And it'll happen because God wants us to succeed. He wants us to grow. He wants us to prosper.
And this is a way to reach our own goals. You know what I mean? Like, all of us want to be happier and all of us want to be calmer and all of us want to be less judging. So this and one of the things that I do in my book is I share testimonials from women who have been studying with me, and they all share this like sense of relief. Like, I can do this. And this has like tangibly improved my practical life.
So
whether with family or business or just in my own perception of self. And so it's like, I don't know, it's like magic.
It is. And it's God when it happens in that supernatural way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, because he doesn't want us to hustle and grind. He doesn't want us to put in that kind of effort. He wants us to operate in the covenant that he established. So it is so remarkable and so extravagant and so natural. It's like, we just can't help it.
Yeah.
What a life.
And one of the things I've seen is that when a person tries to do better and they embark on an active path, then they'll really see God's assistance in their life. And, that God will introduce them to this person or, help them out in this way. And then you're being like led along the path. You're not doing it yourself.
It's so beautiful. I love this. So where can people get more of you, first of all, because when you start spouting wisdom, like people are like, okay, I want to soak up some more of that. So Ruchi, how can people get more of you?
Thank you. So I am on Facebook and Instagram. I have 2 podcasts. One is called The Book of Life, and one is just my weekly Mussar class. So you could just search my name wherever you get your podcasts. And my book, Soul Construction, which by the way is SOUL. You can get this book on Amazon. You can also get it at soulconstruction.org. So that's .org, not .com. And again, soul, SOUL. And then, I am here doing my classes. So I just continue to teach. It's a lifelong project. You're never done working on your character because life will continue to give you situations. And, so I mean, I believe that to the extent that people can plug into this wisdom, they'll be happier people.
That's so true. That's so true, because God says in his word that when you have wisdom, you have life, you have abundance. Like treasure that more than, like, go after wisdom more than you do gold and silver. Like that's where the true value is. And I love this. Thank you so much, Ruchi, for just sharing your time with us and sharing your wisdom. And if you don't realize right now, guys, the real way to achieve that crazy blessed life is through working on yourself. This gives you a beautiful way to do that. Grab hold of this. You're going to be blessed like crazy.